So, starting off with anatomy, the problem with distal femoral fractures is that the largest and fastest growing physis is right next to that area, and it is the last physis to close. And in some boys, it can close for up to 20 years of age. It has an undulating shape, and it starts to close from the center and proceeds centrifugally. It's responsible for 70% of limb growth and 40% of femur growth, approximately 1 centimeter per year. The blood supply comes mainly from the posterior notch, and the medial femoral condyle is less well perfused. So this all has implications for outcome. Some associated injuries, popliteal artery injury is known to happen, but rare. Common peroneal nerve injury again happens in 1 in 20 children. But the more important thing is many of these fractures are associated with ligamentous problems, MCL, medial meniscus, ACL deficiency, etc. According to one paper, up to 50% of children and adolescents had some form of ligamentous deficiency. So there are various types of distal femur fractures. It can be in the metaphysis, the supracondylar area, involving the physis itself or intraarticular. And obviously physis and intraarticular go together. So in the metaphyseal junction, these are mainly high energy displaced fractures. If there is sufficient room, then you can do an antegrade TENS nailing. If it's a simple fracture, if there is comminution, then we may need to provide more stable fixation. And if you are doing an antegrade TENS, it is quite okay to cross the physis from proximal to distal for added stability. So if you're using an antegrade TENS nail, you make 2 entry points over the lateral and anterolateral part of the proximal femur, and you keep the 2 entry points about 1.5 to 2 centimeters apart. And again, it's a standard C and S technique. For supracondylar fractures, low energy with minimal displacement, a single leg spica and 15 degrees knee flexion is perfectly satisfactory. If there is greater amounts of displacement, close reduction and K-wiring or plate fixation can be utilized. So the 6-year-old fall from height, and this was fixed outside. A patient was subsequently referred to me. You can see that they have put multiple K-wires, and you can see the hesitancy of the surgeon in trying to avoid the physis. He's trying to stay as close to the periphery of the physis as possible. And then if you do that, this is what happens. The K-wires start to migrate because you don't have stable fixation. So use thick crossed pins. You can use anywhere from 1.8 to 3.2 mm K-wire or Steinman pin. And so long as you don't make multiple passes, you're very clean with your trajectory, the incidence of growth arrest is rare. And cross the physis, and this is often needed in these injuries. Another case of a 10-year-old, much larger child, fall from scooter. You can see that we have used a Philos plate which has been adapted, and I've actually extended the plate to beyond the physis in order to get a better grip on the fragment. And this went on to heal uneventfully. So whenever there's a high energy injury, always think about stable fixation. Physeal injuries are the most problematic because the big guy, the distal femoral physis, is sitting there. Complication rates are high, including deformity and leg length difference. You know all the Salter-Harris types, I'm not going to go into that. Salter-Harris type 1 requires anatomical reduction and pinning because there is a high rate of failure with cast immobilization, and this has been documented in multiple studies. The rate of growth arrest is 30 to 40% in a Salter-Harris type 1. Just remember these figures. So a 13-year-old boy, soccer injury, brought urgently to casualty, no neurovascular deficit, though we were very careful in checking that the circulation is okay given the direction of displacement. And then we just used 4 pins, tried to cross it above the physis, which we have managed to, got stable fixation, and then he did really well, got full range of movement, and then disappeared for 3 years or 4 years, and then came back when he was 18 saying he's got a limp and he had a 1.5 centimeter leg length difference. So I think it's important to emphasize close follow-up in these because some of them do develop late deformity. So in case you pick this, the fact that they have developed a growth arrest early, you can do a timely contralateral physiodesis. Now having a 18 or 19-year-old with a 1.5 centimeter difference is a lifelong problem. It's not large enough to warrant any leg lengthening surgery, but then he'll have to wear a shoe race for the rest of his life. So if you have close follow-up, perhaps something better could have been done. Salter-Harris type 2 is the most common, accounting for 70 to 80% of all distal femoral fractures. You need to get anatomical reduction. This can be closed or open. Open reduction is typically required because there is some periosteal interposition into the fracture. Typically, we fix it by with a screw, taking in the Thurston Holland fragment. The rate of growth arrest, this is from the ARS, from a Salter-Harris type 2 is 58%. Most of you thought it's 12%, yeah? So it's a lot higher than what you think it is. So 3-year-old boy fall from the first floor. He also had a minor head injury. And then we just reduced it immediately and fixed it with a single screw. And then he went on to do really well. This is a 9-month X-ray, and you can see how fast the distal femur is growing. And you can see that there is no growth arrest because there is no asymmetry of the how the screw is migrating up. So you need to take these screws out quickly or else it will go really further up. So try and remove these screws as soon as you get stable fixation. Salter-Harris type 3 are intra-articular fractures. You need to get anatomical reduction. Typically intra-epiphyseal cannulated cancellous screws are used. If the displacement is more than 2 millimeters, it's better to open the joint and have a look at the fracture. You can use minimal incisions to visualize the reduction. No need to make big incisions and open the whole joint up, just where you need to see the quality of the reduction, and then you can do percutaneous screw. Rate of growth arrest is 50% with Salter-Harris type 3. But I think the type 3s, the growth arrest is less because we manage it more actively than the type 2s. So the fact that type 2s in practice have like a 60% growth arrest rate is probably because we are not managing them as aggressively or actively as we should be. So that's an example of a Salter-Harris type 2, type 3 managed with CC screws. Type 4 is just a 2+3. This has the highest rate of complication. Growth arrest is somewhere between 80 and 100%. Combination of metaphyseal and epiphyseal screw, and open reduction, according to some papers, provides slightly better results. So, factors associated with physeal arrest, another ARS question. The extent of displacement, extent of initial displacement is the single most important factor which determines what is your risk of physeal arrest. And compared to a less displaced fracture to a severely displaced fracture, the odds ratio is 4. So if you have a severely displaced distal femur fracture, the rate of growth arrest is 4 times higher. So that's a high number, I feel. And quality of reduction and stable fixation has some marginal role. So if you have unstable fixation, poor quality reduction, your rate of growth arrest is 37%. If you get good fixation, it's 27%. So there is a statistically significant difference, but not all that very much as we might expect, because I think the initial injury, the amount of damage to the physis, is probably the single most important factor that determines the rate of physeal arrest. Now this one, it's called a metaphyseal corner fracture. Please remember this. It is pathognomonic of child abuse, of non-accidental injury. Typically it happens in children younger than 1 year of age. And if you see an X-ray like this, please look for other signs of abuse, and please call your pediatrician and ask them to have a good look at the child, including the fundus and everything. And look at the external, look at the genitalia, look at the mouth. They need to do a very, very detailed examination. So if you see an X-ray like that, that is, it's a big red flag to say that there is high potential for child abuse. So distal femur fractures represent a diverse variety of fractures. They are all high energy injuries. Most require intervention, and poor outcomes are common. So we need to be really cognizant of our role as surgeons and try to do our best. Early appropriate intervention is key, and all of these children need to be followed up to maturity. Thank you very much.